In this video, we're going to show you how to solve equations using nth roots. I'm going to start off by showing you an example of solving an equation where we would use square roots and solve something that you're all very familiar with. If I want to know what number squared equals 9, one way of thinking about it is thinking about what number, when I multiply it to itself, gives me 9. Now, of course, you're probably thinking 3 times 3 is 9, and that's true, but that's not the only thing that equals 9. We could also use negative 3 times negative 3, because you know the product of two negatives is also a positive. So as a result, we have two possible solutions for x. X could be 3, or x could be negative 3. Now, we kind of learned a shortcut back in the first chapter where we could just, instead of kind of thinking about it where we were guessing and checking, we can just square root both sides. And we talked about every time we square root both sides of an equation, we had to use a plus or minus sign. Now, of course, the square root of 9 is 3, but I'm just going to rewrite this in a different way because it's going to be helpful to think about in these newer examples. Instead of 9, let's write it as 3 times 3, or use the prime factorization. Now, you guys remember, whenever you simplify a radical, if you have the same factor inside of the radical, or a pair of factors, you can remove it from inside the radical. So we get x is plus or minus just 3, the same as we got kind of when we guessed and checked. Now I'm going to expand upon that a little bit and kind of stretch you a little bit with the following example. Let's say I have some number cubed equals to 27. So that means some number x times x times x is 27. Now you can try guessing and checking. You can start with 2 times 2 times 2 and see if that equals 27. But if you multiply 2 times 2, that's 4 times another 2, that'd be only 8 equals 27. So clearly 2 is not going to work. And if you tried 3 times 3 times 3, I think does work to get 27, because 3 times 3 is 9, multiplied by another 3 is 27. It makes a true statement. So the answer here, is 3. Now you might be wondering, well, what about maybe negative 3 will work? Well, let's try it. If I did negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3, that's negative 27, not positive 27, because negative 3 times negative 3, of course, that's positive 9, but if you multiply it by that third negative factor, that makes it negative 27. So we'd end up with a false statement, negative 27 equals positive 27. So throw that negative 3 out. Negative 3 is not going to work. Now, there is a shorter way of going about doing this than guessing and checking. And instead of square rooting the equation, if I have the cube root of x equals 27, I can do something called the cubed root of both sides. And to make it a cube root, we have to use the little number here in this corner that's called an index of the radical. And that tells you what root you're taking. So when I cube root an x cubed, that just gives me x. When I take the cube root of 27, what I'm going to do is break 27 down into its prime factorization. And I think if you did, you'd get 3 times 3 times 3. Now, when the index is 3, we're looking for triples of the same factor. And in this case, I have 3 3s. So that means I can pull out a 3. So I get the answer x equals 3 in a much faster way. Now notice, I don't need to use a plus or minus sign when I'm using an odd root, because it doesn't make sense. I can't have the product of these three negative factors turn out to be positive. It's going to remain negative. So the only answer is x equals 3. Let me show you one other example here. Let's say I had x to the 4th equals 16. Now, in much the same way as we did the x squared, we can try to come up with, guessing and checking, what 4 factors, when I multiply them, give me 16. And maybe with the first try, if we did a bunch of 2's, 4 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, will give us 16. So that's an answer. Do you think negative 2 will work? If you did, negative 2 4 times Will the product be positive 16? Hopefully you're thinking to yourself, yes, because I can pair up the negative factors to make positive 4 times a positive 4, and that'll give me positive 16. So in fact, the answer here is also plus or minus 2. So there is also a shortcut here. If I try to do the shortcut here, we're just going to do something called the fourth root of both sides. And just like we did for square roots, we need to remember a plus or minus sign in front. So one of the things you're going to kind of realize, guys, as we solve using these nth roots, anytime you take an even root where the index is even, you will need a plus or minus sign. And if you break that 16 down, there's really 4 2's inside. And that works nice because I'm looking for perfect fourth powers inside of that fourth root. So what I can do is take all 4 and pull 1 2 out of the radical, and I get the answer as x is plus or minus 2. What I'm going to ask that you try to do right now on your own is see if you can solve the following. Part A, can you solve x cubed equals 64? And then for part B, give this a shot. See if you can get x to the 6th equals 64. Good luck, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Thanks for watching.